yesterday.
I'm going to call to order the January 2018 Finance Committee meeting. As usual, we will, y'all give me 1 second so I can join, so I can vote.
Oh, did I join?
Everybody join.
Yes, I did.
We will start with the consent. Are there any items anyone would like pulled off of consent?
I got
Yes,
you.
Go right ahead.
C1,
C1,
C2,
C2,
C4,
C4,
C5,
C5,
and C6.
C6.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
That covers mine.
Oh, hang on a minute. Is there anything left? Yeah,
No,
there's a few
it's-
left.
yeah.
Ms. Burks, you have any?
I'm going to make the motion if it's nothing else.
That's fine.
I move.
We have a motion to approve the
Second.
ballots. This is second. We have a second. So all in favor of approving the ballots of consent will please vote on your machines.
We vote on those things?
Hang on a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just joined the meeting.
Here we go. Because I'm there. Okay, that is approved. So we will now go, if the secretary please read C1.
Item C1, consideration of amendments to the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget ordinances for the city of Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
you have a question?
Yes. After reading through this and seeing that we were making the adjustment, amending for the, I guess, the money that was not given to downtown Winston-Salem, the
Yeah.
Partners for the Summer Acts or whatever. My question is now, again, when we go do this, I'd like to know, since we're giving this money, what are the musical acts for 2018? And what does the diversity inclusion composition look like? Because over the past few years since I've been on the council, I have had groups that are minority groups and others to call me as to that they maybe have been trying to get on the list for decades or years and haven't been able to get there, Mr. Garrity. So if you don't have this today, I'm good with it. But I do need to know, because I know they already know, what are the groups for 2018 for the city of Winston-Salem, and what's the diversity inclusion number?
You can have that for Monday. We'll have that in your packets.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this one?
May I just
ma'am.
ask to add, and who makes this selection? You don't have to tell me in
Okay,
her
we'll-
report.
We'll have a little report with the packet. Okay, can I get a motion to move this forward?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Somebody second? Okay,
Oh, I'm
hang on a minute. We
sorry.
got to get back.
Lost. I'm like you.
Everybody, give them a week off, they forget everything. All right, hang on a minute. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Everybody, please vote. And that is approved. We will now go to C2. The secretary would read that one, please.
Item C2, resolution approving forgiveness of an outstanding city loan and acceptance of donation of land regarding the undeveloped lots within the Lake Park subdivision located in the East Ward.
Mr. Page, why don't you give us a 2-minute on this one, because it's a little complicated.
Back in 1990, the city council approved a loan to Lake Park Development Inc. for $275,000, along with a 25-year loan at 0% interest, and was paid off as lots were sold in the subdivision. 22 of the 43 lots still remain undeveloped, and the developer has made it known that he would not be pursuing development any further in the subdivision, primarily because of the market conditions, and it's just been hard for him to make the development work. In March of last year, City Council authorized us hiring a consultant to go out and take a look at the feasibility of further developing the lots. And the consultant did come back with a study that 20 of the 22 lots were buildable, but that 10 of those 20 actually had some extensive site work that would be required due to multiple factors, including development costs associated with developing the lots based on the original restricted covenants, which today would require house around $300,000 to $250,000 range, as well as the market conditions in the changed for the lots. The tax value on these lots is in excess of $400,000. It's in excess of 20 acres. The lots still are buildable, and at some point in the future, they may be very marketable and useful as single-family lots. And we think we have a commitment to the project and the community that they be built under the original restrictive covenant, since this was in fact a city project that was started back in 1990. So we would assume ownership of the lot and sell them only for development under the original restrictive covenants, which had a minimum square footage requirement as well as brick or stucco, 1 or 2 floor homes was the original requirement. So we think that would be the best for all parties.
Okay, Ms. Adams, go ahead.
Yes. My concern is, again, that, okay, I'd like to see the council to receive information about what are the highlights of that restrictive covenant. Is it just that we're not going to build anything that doesn't conform to whatever, that it's a $300,000 house? I mean, but you don't have to explain that now, but you need to get that to the council. I also need to understand that, okay, we do this and we get the lots, and I see the council member is here for the ward, Councilman Montgomery, but we assume the lots, they're worth $400,000, and we can't find anybody to build on them. Okay, again, it goes back to that restrictive covenant. Are we stuck with not putting anything there but a $200,000+ house when we could probably put some other houses there that are more affordable to young folks or working people, or duplexes that look real nice for old people like me?
And I can actually answer that question now, Councilman Adams. At some point in the last 20-plus years, the restrictive covenants were changed. Lake Park Development, Inc. still has the majority ownership of the lot in the development. Under the restrictive covenant, as they are, that's why I keep referring to the original restrictive covenant as opposed to the restrictive covenant. The original restrictive covenant is what we're proposing it be developed as opposed to the new restrictive covenants, which the new restrictive covenant would allow something much more along the lines of staying in the $125,000 range, but it's not what the city had actually presented to. Keep in mind, this was really a city development.
I remember, Mr. Page. You know I do.
It was before my time.
But I know, but that's why I'm asking. That's why the council needs to see the old covenant, restrictive covenant, and the new restrictive covenants, because right now we don't have a clue. And I still believe, and I know you had to take over the project when you came on board, but again, I have no issue with the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, I know probably like Ms. Burke and a whole bunch of folks that live down there in those houses and had them built. But my concern is that we now are buying, we own the land, we struck the deal, that we won't be able to do anything with it. That's my only concern, and that's another reason why I'm asking for the council to be given the information on the old covenant and the new covenant at least, so we can fashion something in our heads that's still, okay, this is where we're going with this.
Ms. Burke, you next.
Yes, I guess Mayor Jones and I, we can really reflect back on this project, the beginning of it, and I'm sure the council person going to make sure he guard that very carefully, because some of the citizens have had some concerns, and I just want for the record, I do have a house out there myself, and I want it for the record. But also I am interested in, and I've had conversations with Mr. Page, I would be interested, I'm not living out there, and I don't intend to live out there, but where are you going to come in from that area? And the folks who are out there have really taken care of it. It's a beautiful place. And the Andersons, I believe, were the ones who developed that area there. And I would think if I had lived out there, and me at my age, and you're talking about bringing something new in there, I would want to know everything that was going to happen, because who you bring in at the price you bring in, it can be very important if the people are going to value it or bring it in another, carry it in another direction.
Mr. Montgomery, you're next, then Mr. McIntosh, then the mayor.
Yep. As it's already been stated, this project predates most of us. I think, again, the mayor and Councilman Burke were around in terms of how this came along, and very much around how do we create opportunities for upper middle class individuals in East Winston to have housing, and that's where it started off in developing at that time, and where we are today in reference to challenges of continuing to build in that nature. This has been probably a year and a half, 2 years since the last time we had a conversation in reference to this, extended the time frame to be able to figure out what's the viability of continued growth and development here, which has come back to very clearly two things. One, what does the neighborhood and the community that lives there right now, who have made investments in the community, what do they desire and they want? And they've articulated very clearly that they want, if there's to be new development, for properties to be developed within the same context and homes that are there today. And they are much better off with no new development if it means that the development will be less than the same type of quality. And as their representative, I support them and I support their position. I think we get an asset in the community. We get back as a city an asset that's worth more than what the loan is that we have here. And I do think that there will be opportunities in the future on the buildable lots to be able to see how we can continue to develop and at some time continue to recoup some of the funds that we have in the project long term. But very, very clearly in the community, they don't want anything to be developed that's not like what's in the neighborhood today, which I think would go counter to the original desire, and then it would just look very, it would not look right to design some of the properties that I think some have had in mind at other times to do. And again, sits in a very stable community in Winston-Lake Estates, in the back of Winston-Lake Estates, that is a well-kept and well-maintained part of the eastern part of our community. And so I support this, and I support us being able to, we have a community meeting with the neighbors on Thursday to continue to have some more conversations with them to make sure that they're well abreast of where we are in this process, but also finding out some way in terms of that we can make sure that neighbors are somehow consistently in the loop on these properties, that nothing happens without having major stakeholders like them engaged in the conversation.
Mr. McIntyre.
On the one hand, I think this is a cautionary tale about getting in the development business and how difficult it can be to successfully develop single-family residential property. On the other hand, this has turned out to be a pretty good deal for the city of Winston-Salem. On an annual basis, and I don't know that I got all the structures in there, I came up with $208,000 in city property tax that's paid every year on the houses that were built in this. And we now have $167,500 in the deal and land back. So to me, the financial payout is something I think we would approve if we were approached with that deal again on a money out, money in basis. Driving around a neighborhood, the lots that are not developed, I think are going to be a very low maintenance dollar proposition for us. They're all heavily wooded. I don't think there's going to be a lot of mowing involved. So overall, I don't really have a problem with bringing back these lots at somewhere around $9,000 a piece. I'm somewhat blown away by the estimate from the appraiser on what they're worth. $400,000 sounds a bit optimistic to me, but we're getting them back at around $9,300 a piece. It may take a long time for us to be able to sell them to somebody who wants to build a $300,000 house on them. But again, our holding costs, I think, are very low. So I'm in support of it.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind folks, of course, Councilmember Burke was there, that this was part of a comprehensive strategy to try to revitalize the East Winston community. A 1989 plan that was put together by Hammer-Siler George, I believe it was back then. So this was a bold step to get more middle-income folks living into the East Winston area. And just piggybacking on what Councilmember McIntyre said, I did a quick down and dirty. I think there's probably $5.5–6 million worth of value there in the houses that have been built to date, which I just guesstimated over the past 25 years or so. It's probably been, we've received $650,000 of tax revenues. We're owed $167, so we've been more or less paid out by the new revenues anyway. And I agree with Councilor McIntyre. The holding cost is very, very minimal, and I think we'll pick up some sales along the line there. And I think we need to protect those individuals who've made those. They were kind of pioneers here in Council. Remember when they went in there, Wesley Curtis and others that lived in there. So it's a good project.
Yeah, Mr. Marshall.
Is there anything under these covenants and agreements that precludes a homeowner from buying 2 lots and consolidating it into a single building unit? Are these the individual lots? Are they designated in such a way that they could not be consolidated with an adjacent property owner, or could be consolidated? Would that be allowed, or is this going to be precluding against the plan? As far as flexibility of developing the lots.
We'll get the original restricted covenants and the new restricted covenants for you, but the original intent was for single-family construction based on I think it was a 2,000 square foot house. So it was clearly built, originally based upon construction only and not consolidation or just having an additional lot. So we'll get that information for you.
What I'm hearing from the folks up here would be nice, irrespective of this, and we'll get a motion in a minute. I'll take care of this.
Move for approval.
Okay, we have a second. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. At a later meeting to come back, is I think Ms. Burke suggested, let's get the original covenants, the new covenants, and let's decide, and I think Mr. Montgomery's got a good point, you got to be fair to the people that have built. The last thing you want to do is put a mobile home beside somebody's house and kill the value of it. So I think we need to be very respected there. But let's look at all that, and we do have a conduit to the neighborhood through their council member, and see if we can't come up with the appropriate covenants. I think what Mr. Larson's alluding to, and just looking at the map in here, you may find 2 neighbors that if there's an empty lot between them, they may want to buy it and split it and give them a little bit bigger yard or whatever it may be. So let's kind of look at all that, but I do think we need to be very respectful of the folks that were pioneers and moved in there. Oh, excuse me.
I was going to say, when the conversation first started, one of the citizens spoke to me, but when they had the conversation with Councilman Montgomery, he told me he felt satisfied with the direction they were going to be moving in. Now, I want to say the tax value on the piece of property I paid was over $3,100 for this year. And had the tax people not lowered our taxes, you know, would be higher than what they are. So it is a large tax value.
I just have one bit of information that I'd like to come back on. I'm assuming that the HOA is set up like a traditional one where until 75% of the lots are sold, then the developer still maintains control over that. We might want to look at something to make that lower to allow the property owners in there to have more voice, more control over that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I was
Yes,
going to
ma'am.
ask the attorney,
Yeah.
do I need to vote on this or not vote on this? I was not involved with the beginning. Nobody's put any money. It's been all my money that's been in that project.
She's owns one of the properties.
Why don't you abstain
Yeah.
right now? Let me look carefully.
Okay. Ms. Adams, do you have anything else to weigh in?
Yes, so just to make it clear, and for the listening audience as well as the council member and those that know me, I have nothing against what is going on. But as a council person, part of the governance of the city, when I read through it, I remember when all went down, but in my mind, I knew there was another covenant. But I looked through the material and it wasn't there, and I think it's incumbent upon us to be up on what we did for those citizens then, what somebody has done since, and so that it is compliant maybe to the council member and his constituents as to what they want. And it just doesn't hurt to have more information, because this was a deal and a partnership that we struck, almost 30 years ago?
Yeah.
So I just think it just helps us to be more abreast of what's going on. But I'm all right with it.
Okay.
It's just that, like I said, though, we need to look at what we promised and what we changed.
All righty. We have a motion and a second. Oh, yes, Mr. Montgomery?
Just to add to Councilmember McIntosh's point, that's something that is part of the conversation that we'll have
Yeah.
with the folks on Thursday, and just in the conversation around, since these will transition to the city would then be the only group of folks who can change the covenants. And I think, again, the neighborhood should be the ones who should drive how that looks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this, or send it to, if everyone will please vote. Okay, and we have 3 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstaining. And you'll get back with Ms. Burke before the meeting on. Okay, we will now go to C4.
Item C4, resolution authorizing permission to apply for ninth year of grant funding from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program to support continued operation of the Forsyth County Driving While Intoxicated Task Force.
Ms. Adams, well, everything's you. Keep
You
going.
know that's right. Anyway, I saw the breakdown of the partnerships, the county, city. Was it anybody else? Kernersville. I just wanted to know, and they gave some data about the arrests, the numbers, and whatever. But I would like to see, and you can get this to us.
Okay.
What is the breakdown of that data based on localities? Like if you got 5,000 people you issued DUIs to, and we got a breakdown of who's paying what to be a part of the grant, then how many of that 5,000 came out of Winston-Salem itself? How many did our police do versus the sheriff versus Kernersville? And I'd like to see that with the data that you presented. That was my only question.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any other comments on this one? Okay, if everybody will please vote when it comes up. Ms. Burke, can you hit
Oh,
second?
hit second.
See what it does. There we go. All right, if everybody please vote. That is approved, 4-0. We'll now go to C5, please.
Item C5, consideration of items related to the purchase of street sweeping vehicles.
Ms. Adams.
You could tell it was cold outside. I read everything.
You must not want to watch the game tonight.
That's okay. You okay? I don't have a dog in the fight.
We must have an Oklahoma fan in there.
I don't have a dog in the fight. I noted the use that we'll use staff to fill the positions, and I appreciate the fact that we were able to come to a solution here to realize some of the complaints of some of the different wards in the city that we felt like we weren't getting the proper attention to our streets that we could see in other streets when we traveled throughout the city. So I'm glad we were able to come to a resolution on that. So if we're going to fill the positions from on the inside, then are we going, and which I'm just asking, are we going to backfill positions that we empty or make vacant for people to now move into the street sweep? That's something that Greg, you can get me that information. I just need for our staff and Mr. Garrity, how we do these things. We need to be more simple also in how we present this to council when we give us this information, because with the budget coming up and with new positions coming on board due to the bonds, we need to understand even when we bring in on new service, how we're going to be responsive to it. I'd also like to see, again, a schedule or map similar to leaf pickup when sweeping is being done throughout the city and when we're in these different quadrants or wards, much like how we do leaf pickup, because it gives the council member and our staff an opportunity to go out and actually audit for compliance for ourselves to see if this was the good deal that we think we got, okay?
Ms. Burke? Just hang on a second. Ms. Burke, go ahead.
To follow up, I was going to ask a question. When we talk about being able to see people who are doing their job, monitor them, same thing the councilwoman is saying, and you and I have been in quite a few conversations, and I believe you told me you had hired someone to help us better understand. So explain that a little bit.
Member Tim Burke, the Office of Performance and Accountability, they did the audit here of our contract street sweeper. They came back. We brought that to Public Works a couple months ago, I believe. They came back and they found that the contractor was not doing all that they were supposed to, and neither was our supervisor in-house who was monitoring the contract. So they recommended some significant changes. We're going to use that office to look at some of our other contracts, mowing, recycling, to look at some of the other areas of performance, because I think we can probably identify the same type of conditions. Also, I wanted to point out, too, that in this case, we'll be coming back to Public Works this spring. As you can see in the information, with this change, we're going to be able to double the number of street miles we sweep. But we want to get the council to agree on the schedule and the routes and where. And then, of course, it will be tracked, so you'll be able to see it.
Thank you.
That was my follow-up, as the councilperson said, if you give us this map, now we ride and we see, and our elves ride and they see, and then our neighborhood presidents, or they ride and they see. Now, coming from the office, let's say if you were going to do a couple of streets in the northeast ward, how do you know that they actually did it? Give an example.
What we did with the consultant was we looked at the routing that they gave us, and then we went and monitored it. What we will do when we have it in-house is we'll use our GPS and AVL tracking system, which we have in all our vehicles, and we'll be able to see where they went and make sure that they did it. And we've also moved this service to under Mr. Taylor, and he assures me that it's going to be first class.
Thank you.
Mr. Turner, Ms. Adams had a question on how you're going to man this. Can you comment on that?
We'll be posting the jobs for consideration by both internal and external candidates, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, but we will have a net increase in number of employees.
That is correct.
That's
Two
correct.
additional employees will be part of this proposal,
And
are
if-
part
yeah.
of this.
And if someone doesn't apply in the house, we'll go out house.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so do we have a motion on this yet?
Yeah.
Do we have a second? Would someone like to second?
Second.
All right, hang on a minute.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about Mr. Montgomery, I'm sorry.
It was just a question that was along the same lines of Councilmember Burke, but more specific in reference to what we discovered in actually evaluating this. On the other areas that you mentioned, will those be as requested, or is that a task given to the office to evaluate those for these type of savings and opportunities?
Those are on. We're putting them on their work plan. Right now, they're dealing with that significant audit of police and fire payroll. So that's taking up their time probably through the end of January. But we're putting them on the list. I think those type of performance audits we get a lot more bang for your buck than the typical. How much money do we collect at a rec center, which is what we used to do. But these performance audits, I think we can find out a lot more about performance.
Okay, thank you. If we do have a motion and a second on this, if everyone will vote, please. Okay, that is approved. We will now go to C6. Mr. Turner, why don't you tell us, or Mr. Bates, you want to tell us about purchasing a crawler? Somebody, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, this is equipment we need in order to be able to clean some of the storm drainage systems when we're doing new construction or when we're doing repair of drainage ways on public right-of-way. It's a heavy-duty bulldozer-type piece of equipment with a shovel on the front.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Adams. You had a question?
Yes. And just so the public knows, what do we do with the old crawler, the one we're replacing?
We will typically surplus it. I would say, just for the edification of the committee and the public, that we do evaluate whether a piece of equipment can be refurbished and reutilized, or if it's at the end of its practical life. And if it can be refurbished, we get a certified rebuild and try to reuse that equipment, because a lot of the steel that is a significant component of the cost can be reutilized and not have to be repaired. But this is a piece of equipment that we do need to replace. In fact, I think it may be supplemental service. So bottom line is, if we have some existing equipment that we're going to get rid of, we surplus it and it's put out for auction.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Garrity, as we move forward again, come budget season, can we look at those types of things in a different attachment or appendix or addendum to the budget? Things that we can show we're being sustainable with the tax dollars, that we bought a piece of equipment, a new crawler. This is what we bought it for. This is what we did with the old crawler. We used parts. We redid it, and we still use it in emergency situations or something like that. I think going forward, that's important for us to see as well, and the citizens to know, again, what are we doing with the stuff that we're replacing?
Absolutely.
Okay?
We can give you that.
Thank you. Thank you. We have, do we have a motion and a second yet?
A motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll say second.
Hold tight. We have a motion and a second. Everybody will please vote. And that is approved. And that finishes the consent. We will now go to the general agenda. There are 2 items on it. The Secretary, please read G1.
Item G1, approval of an economic development assistance to Bunzel Distribution USA Incorporated for a public hearing on January the 16th, 2018.
Mr. Page, if you will present this, and I see Mr. Leaks here if we have any questions.
Yes, good afternoon again. This item is a request for assistance to Bunzel for $182,950. It would equal approximately 50% of the net new taxes that we generated by the company over a 5-year period. So that means that another $182,950 would be available for any general fund purposes for the city. The company would actually invest about $13.4 million and build a new distribution warehouse in the Union Cross area. They'll relocate 66 jobs. Currently, they're located in 2 locations in the Triad, but neither is in Winston-Salem, North Forsyth County. One is in Colfax, the other is in High Point. So they'll be building a location sort of in between both of those. The jobs would range from about $32,000 to up to $200,000. While there are no new jobs at this time, the company is aware of the city's interest in commitment to hiring local as well as hiring hard-to-place and residents of the neighborhood revitalization strategy area. So they have made that commitment that as hiring becomes available in the future, they will look at those populations. Again, the way that the project works is a year after they pay property taxes, they'll get a payment back from the city equal to approximately 50% of the net new taxes. So if they don't perform, they don't get the money, or if they perform less than anticipated, they get less than the agreement would be structured as. So it's a performance-based contract that we'll enter into with the company. Once the company performs, they will get a payment from the city on an annual basis over 5 years. The company is also looking at, if they don't build here and expand here, moving operations to either Richmond, Virginia, or Greenville, South Carolina, or portions to each. Bunzel is a supply company, and they are in the food packaging, disposable supplies, cleaning and safety products, and they manufacture and actually distribute to supermarkets, retailers, convenience stores, and other users. They have about 100 warehouses nationally and serve all 50 states and Puerto Rico and Canada, as well as the Caribbean and parts of Mexico. Have worldwide sales in excess of $10 billion. Be a great logo to have here in Winston-Salem. Happy to answer any questions. As the chairman mentioned, Ms. Leak is here from Winston Business Inc.
Mr. Mayor, you had a comment?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. One, and we talked about this in closed session, is that the city of Winston-Salem does not go out and recruit from our other triad cities, Greensboro and High Point, and hopefully they don't do the same for us there. This company was going to have to move. They checked out Guilford and could not find location. And we have sort of a gentleman's ladies agreement with those cities. So we're going to lose them out of triad if they can't find a spot. Secondly, this project could help kick off that section of the Temple School Road project. And there's 90 acres there just west of Herbalife, that this could be a nice catalytic impact on it. And then fourthly, the fact that we're only paying 50% of the new property taxes is a very bargain kind of deal, because a lot of times we pay 65, 70% of the new taxes for these projects. So it's a great little project.
Ms. McIntosh?
You stole one of my points about the no poaching.
Oh, no poaching.
Happy to say that we're not out competing with our fellow cities. But the other thing is that the statement was made that there are no new jobs to this, but there are new jobs to Forsyth County, Winston-Salem, should this come to us. So 66 new jobs for us. They're not new jobs being created
in the country.
In the country. Yeah, so
Ms.
that's
Burke?
a positive.
Yeah, I see the mayor brought up about those other 2 cities not competing with us. When we brought Dale here, and after we got Dale, then I sat on the executive board for that group over there, and they thought that Winston-Salem was a joke. I say, you're the joke. I say, because first you knew we were competing for it, And if we're going to be cities that's going to get along, you should have stepped in and kept yourselves supporting us. I said, but you bothered us some because you act like you were going to bid on it, and that created some problems. Now, we had citizens who kicked and carried on like children when we did there. And you started on something, Mayor, that I thought maybe you should have said. Instead of just talking about urban and others, we need to, not now, but maybe, give us, Mr. Page, how many businesses we've created out in that area, how many tax dollars we have received from this. We have to at times make decisions that's not always popular with the citizens, but in the long run, they need to see that it was a good, what we did.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Can I get a motion on this?
Moved.
We have a motion and a second. Everybody wait till the computer
Get
comes
back
up.
to my time.
Please vote. That is approved. We will now go to, Mr. Leake, I didn't mean to cut you out, but I didn't see any questions, so.
I'll be there Monday.
I appreciate you showing up. Thank you, sir. It's Tuesday, though. We will now go to G2. Secretary, read this, please.
Item G2, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee Quarterly Report.
Mr. Rao, this is in your area, and I have a Mr. Pender who is signed up.
Miss Pender.
Miss
Right.
Pender who's signed up. Is someone going to present some comments here?
Fair, Ms. Rendon.
Ms. Pender, come on up. And you can come to the podium there. The floor is yours. If you'll give your name and address for the record so we...
Yes, my name is Randon Pender, and I live at 5621 Novak Street, Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
That is in the Northeast Ward.
In Northeast Ward, yes, absolutely. I would like to say good evening to Mayor Jones and the chair of this committee, Mr. Clark, and the remaining members of the greatest city council in the state of North Carolina. And thank you all for all that you do. The report I have is 10 pages. Do you have copies?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. I will not read word for word the 10 pages, but I will start out and have you just peruse over the graphs and charts that are part of the report. On November the 4th, 2014, the Winston-Salem voters approved a $139.2 million bond package that would address the city's most critical capital needs. The bond package included the following 5 bond orders: and economic development, housing, public safety facilities, parks and recreation, cities and sidewalks. On November 17th, the mayor and City Council created the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, whose purpose was to ensure the efficiency, equity, timeliness, accountability, and the implementation of the projects approved through the bond referendum. The committee composed of 9 members who are city residents and represent a diversity presence in the community. One member of the committee is a professional engineer. Members of the committee were appointed in March of 2015, and the duties included review of the mayor's plan of relating the issuance of the $139.2 million bond for projects approved by the city of Winston-Salem voters in November of 2014. To ensure contracting meets the city's priorities regarding the participation of local vendors and minority women business enterprises in implementing the bond-funded projects. To monitor the timeliness of the implementation of the city manager's plan, to review the appropriation and spending plan of the bond proceeds, and to provide regular reports to the mayor and the city council on the progress of the bonds, and lastly, to perform such other tasks as the mayor and city council may direct. Let's see. This is our 4th report that we're presenting today. Let's see. The timing and location of projects are equitably distributed in all areas of the city. The projects are built in the cost-effective manner and within the budget targets, and the projects are built to acceptable standards of quality. And since the submission of our third report, you can look down and see we had tours in March, May, and July. And even though the Bennett, now it's called the Bennett renovation project, is not part of the committee's oversight responsibilities, the city staff provided a tour due to the scope of the project. And some members attended the ribbon cutting as well. The following table notes the members' attendance at each meeting and tour, and minutes from the committee meetings and tours are available in the city secretary's office. In addition to the tours, city staff provided updates on the status of the projects, MWBE commitments, and the use of bond premium proceeds to ensure projects meet community expectations. And I would like to say it was a pleasure, insightful, informative for us to meet the city staff members, and some of them are in the room today. And it's been a very informative and enriching project that we participated in. Currently, there are 341 specific projects defined, and of the 341 projects, 93 currently are in design or under construction, and 248, 73%, have been completed. The following charts provide the status of all authorized projects to date, and you see which the colors denote authorized projects in progress or completed. Moving on to page 4. Since committee's last report in January 2017, the following projects have been completed, and those are listed there: the Police District 1 facility, Police District 2 facility, Police District 3 facility, Alexandra Beatty Public Safety Training and Support Center, Phase 2, Fire Station number 8 of the Parks and Recreation, Quarry Park, Jameson Park, Sedge Garden Recreation Center, Gymnasium, Little Creek Water Spray Ground, Hathaway Park Water Spray Ground, Bowen Park, Bowen Boulevard Park improvements, and the Gathering Place at Fairview Park. And I will, let's see, the current budget and spending commitments. When the first $60 million in authorized bonds was issued in March 16, the city's debt capacity increased by $5.3 million because the bonds were sold at a premium. To date, the mayor and city council has fully committed these funds to ensure the bond projects meet community expectations. June 2017, the city issued $49 million in authorized 2014 general obligation bonds and sold them at a premium at $5.97 million. In a briefing, the City Council's Finance Committee in August, city management identified some potential uses of the funds, including increasing project contingency for remaining 2014 bond projects, and those are listed there. And the members of the Finance Committee recommended holding on to the additional funds in case construction bids for remaining bond projects are high. Our November 2017 meeting, the members of the city's Bond Oversight Committee agreed with this recommendation. In December, Mayor and City Council approved the budget amendment to appropriate the $5.97 in new bond premium proceeds, as well as $247,000 in capital projects reserves, and to transfer $828,000 from the Alexander Beatty Public Safety Training and Support Center Phase 2 project for a net increase in project funding of $6.217 million. The increase were based on bids submitted or updated cost estimates from project architects, and engineers. The amendments will ensure the projects meet the community's expectations and needs. Altogether, these amendments to the 2014 bond projects total $11.6 million. The following table accounts for the use of the bond premium proceeds and capital reserves, and it's there for your perusal. Page 6, the authorized budgets in the following table reflects the appropriation of these additional funds. To date, the city has spent or encumbered approximately $88.1 million to the bond projects, including $11.8 million in unencumbered contracts. These numbers reflect amounts that have been recorded in the city's finance system. The mayor and city council has approved commitments, in particular with the economic development and housing bonds, which are not accounted for in the finance system, but are reflected in the table above. You have attachments A, provides a total actual MWBE participation, results for completed bond projects that were bid out through the formal process or through an informal process. MWBE goals for projects costing $300,000 or more were formally set as part of the bid process. Projects under $300,000 were bid out through an informal process that did not require setting WMBE goals. While formal goals only relate to subcontracting elements of a formal project, the participation data provided in the first table include the full amount of the construction contract in the general contractor if the general contractor was an MWBE firm. For informal projects, WMBE participation was counted if the architect or general contractor was a MWBE firm. Of the 245 projects that have been bid out, 90% have been awarded through a formal process, with remaining 10% awarded through an informal process. The high number of formal projects reflects the 3 resurfacing contracts and includes each road segment as a separate project. To date, approximately 110 formal and 23 informal projects have been completed, with final reports submitted for historically underutilized businesses, HUB. The number of formal projects includes the individual road segments that were resurfaced through the street resurfacing contracts 1 and 2. For the completed formal projects, the MWBE goal included design and construction totaling 16.8%. Actual, the MWBE participation totaled 22.4%, almost 6 percentage points better than the goal, and that was fantastic. While no formal goals were set for informal projects, the value of the contracts awarded to MWBE general contractors represented 63.2% of the total value of the contracts awarded. Quality and scope of projects. The city staff has provided the committee updates on the bond projects since the start of the projects. Early on, the city experienced challenges with bidder participation and cost escalation, in particular for a number of the parks and recreation projects. Bids for the projects such as the Quarry Park and Salem Lake Park exceeded the estimated construction project budgets and required staff to work with the architects to value engineer the projects to bring the costs within the approved budgets. The committee expressed this concern in a previous report that these choices and adjustments in scope, while necessary, will result in projects that do not meet the community's expectation. As noted above, the city has realized $11.3 million in additional debt capacity that resulted from the sale of $119 million in bonds at a premium. Of that amount, the mayor and council has appropriated almost $10.1 million for public safety facilities, parks, recreation, and streets and sidewalks to ensure these projects meet community expectations. The committee supports the use of this additional funding to restore more elements of the original scope of these selected projects. The members of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee appreciate the opportunity to serve the mayor and city council and the citizens of Winston-Salem in this important oversight role. As more bond projects are completed, the committee will report actual results to determine whether these projects have met all of the expectations of the mayor and the city council. And again, we are honored to serve on
Thank you,
this
Ms. Pender.
bond
We're
oversight
going to
committee.
give you a hand in your committee.
Any questions from the committee? Ms. Burke?
I just want to make a comment. Every time someone presents something to us as a volunteer, a citizen participating, I always say thank you, and I'll say to Mr. Rao, make sure you get all those hours and give it to Project We Care so that they can
All
be
right.
shown the proper way.
Thank you very much, and my pleasure.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to add my thanks to the committee. I know it's probably one of the hardest working committees we've got. To go around, look at all these projects, keep up with them. You're out there in cold weather, hot weather, looking at
Yes.
these projects. I appreciate it. And I got to say, I'm just really pleased with the results of the MWBE participation there. We've exceeded the goals in the formal processing and major 63% of the informal projects. So that's good stuff. Are you happy? No, okay.
And I'm not happy.
Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
no. You see, that may be good what you're saying, but when we first started with this, and I've had communication with the city manager, we still have a way to go.
Yes.
We cannot be satisfied. And then years ago, they tried to say, well, we're better than the county. I said, don't put us with the county because they're not. And so, city manager, you heard it, and you know we want to see more.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Larson, you had a comment?
Yes, as a matter of record, I would appreciate having the name of the committee members listed as when this report is submitted as part of the official record of who submitted it. Thank you.
Okay, I have 3 quick questions. Ms. Saunders, if I'm doing my math right, you still got $20 million to issue? 25? Well, my math's not as good as I thought it was. When are you going to do that? Okay. Okay, no problem. Okay. Chief Malvo, when's Arbor Road going to be finished? Just curious, just my word, I'm just curious. I drive by it every day.
Final inspection will be done on 7 and 9 tomorrow, and then we'll do our walkthrough for the functioning purposes next week.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And lastly, I'm not sure who this goes to. We have committed, as the report says, roughly 60% of the money. That means 40% hasn't. Do we think we have got enough money to finish everything? Because everything's coming in high. Whoever wants to take that hot potato.
We think so.
Okay. Okay. And hopefully Ms. Saunders is going to sell the bonds at a little more premium, get us a little bit more. Okay. Thank you so much.
Right, thank
and thank
you.
your committee. for us.
Thank you.
Folks, we are finished with everything on the agenda. The Public Safety Committee will meet at 6 o'clock as it is scheduled to meet. And with that, we will stand adjourned.
Good job.
Misplaced the drive-through.